Sup YouTube, it's TCG here and welcome back to another TCG video on my channel. Today we're going to be doing a post-rotation tier list prediction. That's right, Japan has already been playtesting with a lot of the cards from Journey Together, and we already seen a lot of results from it, as well as the City League. So today we're going to be giving you guys an updated tier list so you guys can take that into account when purchasing new cards when the rotation actually hits. Rotation hits actually on April 11th, so that's actually in about a month's time. So get rid of your V-Stars, get rid of your Radiant cards. Let's dive into the post-rotation tier list. Here we go. So as always, be of course sure to hit that subscribe button so you can get more daily Pokemon TCG videos like this so you don't miss out. And if you like the video at any given point, let me know by rocking the hell out of the like button. Helps out in many ways. So with the post-rotation, there has been a lot of important cards that actually rotated out. Think about the turbo cards like Pokestop, Tracking Shoes, but other cards like the Radiant Pokemon, Radiant Greninja also gone, Radiant Charizard gone. A lot of very impactful cards have rotated, including stuff even like Barrel for Draw Engine. If you want to know what the replacements are for a lot of these cards, I did make a video about the cards you need to purchase when rotation hits so you can actually get yourself some Draw Engines. So with that being said, as mentioned, this is my personal opinion mixed in with the results that we already got from Japan. So take that into account, and without further ado, let's dive into this tier list. So we already know from Japan that the Ogerpon deck with Terapagos and Noctowl will be tier S. This is a deck that actually was piloted by Rahul Reddy and Tord Ratcliffe over in Japan at the Fukuoka Champions League, and through actually playing that deck, we already see that it's very powerful. Manaphy is no longer around in the post-rotation format, meaning the bench is no longer safe. We know that Shaman is gonna get its release soon, but it's not gonna be in the Journey Together set there, so there will be a period in time where the bench is unprotected. So cards like Wellspring Ogerpon are very, very strong. You can get it off quite easily through the means of Sparkling Crystal and Teal Dance, E-Switch, Attachment of Turn, and boom, you're there. Or maybe even a Crispin and a Sparkling Crystal. You can find all those cards quite easily through the Noctowl with the Jewel Seeker ability, and because you can fetch any trainers from the deck quite easily, this is one of the strongest decks out there. If it goes first, it's gonna be very scary because they have Noctowl, they can get the combo going instantly. Whether it's Crispin or Sparkling Crystal, your bench will be eliminated. So this is one of the strongest decks actually after rotation. Manaphy is gone, and they're taking quite advantage of that. There's also this deck playing Blood Moon. They're also playing the Clefairy. The Lillie's Clefairy actually is a card that turns all the dragon type Pokemon, their weakness, into ×2 weakness, and you can power it up quite easily through the means of Teal Dance, E-Switch, Attach of Turn, or a Crispin as mentioned. So this actually is a toolbox deck that works. They have the Wellspring for the sniping capabilities, the Teal Mask for stuff like Charizard. You have access to Terapagos if you want to have some clean damage output. It is playing Area 0 under def and all that, so the deck is good. If you want to learn about some deck list post-rotation, there's also a video on my channel that you can of course check out. So yeah, this is my personal tier S deck in this format, but there's also another deck. It doesn't lose too much. It is going to be Dragapult. I've seen Dragapult paired up with Goldango. I've seen Dragapult paired up with Dusknoir. Sometimes without Dusknoir and just playing the unfair stamped Badoo combo. So Dragapult is still around. It doesn't lose a lot after rotation. You still have access to the Dracloak as the draw engine. You can power it up through the means of Sparkling Crystal or even Crispin as mentioned. So these are actually very powerful decks after rotation. So if you want to invest in a couple of cards for rotation, those are going to be the ones I personally would suggest because Dragapult's still strong, and the Ogerpon toolbox deck is also really, really strong. In my opinion, you can play a TM Evo build to just get your Dragapult going instantly. You can combine it with Dusknoir, which is still the most preferred way people are playing it over in Japan. You could also start playtesting with some unique build with the Dunsparce as well. I've seen a lot of Dragapult list around, but the main thing is clear. Phantom Dive is still strong. The deck doesn't lose the main core. You have the Dracloaks, you still have Rare Candy. You can even pair it up with Pidgeot EX if you're not afraid of the Badoos. And I did see that in the post-rotation, people are playing less and less Badoo. I know you're losing Radiant Alakazam, but that's the least of your worries because the deck inherently is just that strong. We're putting it in tier S as to be expected. Let's talk about some decks that have fallen down the wayside. I'll be putting Gardevoir EX in tier C. Yeah, you heard me right. Gardevoir fell from tier A all the way down to tier C. We are losing Refinement Kirlia, and it shows. That actually is one of the most damaged goods from the post-rotation format. We are losing our important Refinement, but also because we no longer have Manaphy and Wellspring Ogerpon is around, your Kirlias will be going into the discard pile. Even if you go for a Team Evo build to just get your speed up going, you will have to be Turbo. And with Turbo, I mean you're playing a lot of Rare Candy, you're playing Brilliant Blender, and you try to get those Psychic Energies in the discard pile ASAP. You no longer have the Kirlias as the draw engine, so you're probably gonna have to play Tatsugiri. You no longer have Radiant Greninja, so you're gonna have to play something like Phasandipity if you fall behind or if you get knocked out. But the main thing is clear: Gardevoir's ability is still strong, and people will still try to make it work. You have Screamtail still, you have Drifloon still. The main package is still there as a very viable deck. The cool thing also is with Manaphy rotating that Screamtail becomes more powerful. You can counter, catch, or trap something and then snipe it. And you don't have to worry about any Manaphys laying around in the opponent's bench, so which is great. But on the other hand, yeah, you're losing the Refinement, and that's pretty much why Gardevoir fell down all the way to tier C, unfortunately. Ability is still strong, and if we're getting more powerful Psychic type attackers, it's great. You also can deal with Dragapult EX quite easily because of Lillie's Clefairy that you can easily include into your deck. So you have Drifloon, Lillie's Clefairy, Screamtail. There's still Monkey Dory shenanigans which you can do as well. So the deck is still around, but it loses a lot of its power because Refinement Kirlia is gone. So tier C for me. Moving forward, we're gonna be talking about let's talk about a new one. And Zoroark Darmanitan. Personally, I put it in tier B. People could be putting it higher because it actually got like a decent slot over at the Fukuoka Champions League, but I'm not convinced quite yet. You can of course use Darmanitan as a sniping mechanic, slapping 9 into the active, 9 into one of the opponent's bench Pokemon, similar to the Radiant Greninja with the Moonlight Shuriken before it. You can power it up to Reversal Energy, or you can just go and copy paste it through the means of the Zoroark EX. And Zoroark EX does come packed with the trade ability, which means you can draw a lot of cards from your deck, which is always nice to see. You can use the Ents PP up to power it up while it's on the bench, so you can get those double energy requirements. So attachment of turn, Ents PP up, and you're good to go. You can copy paste Reshiram's attack if they don't one-shot you. So there are definitely a lot of things you could do with Zoroark, but for me, it is just going to be stranding in the tier B category because personally, I will be playing the higher tier decks out there. Not to mention, it is a strong deck, but you can play around the raging attack of the Reshiram, and the Darmanitan 90/90 doesn't do too much against like decks like the Ogerpon, so that's why I feel it belongs in tier B. Moving forward, we're going to be talking about Gholdengo. I think Gholdengo is in a great spot. I'm going to be putting that in tier A. You can one-shot all the 2 prizes from the Ogerpon box deck. You can one-shot Dragapult EXs quite easily. This is actually a very powerful archetype, doesn't lose too much. You have coin bonus. I know you're losing Radiant Greninja and the Palkia build, but now you can focus on other cards that you can include into the list. Maybe you're playing the Dunsparce, you don't know. You can just have a lot of draw, and the more draw you have, the better you have all energies in hand, and then the Make It Rain attack can pretty much one-shot anything in the game. We're gonna be in a format where there's gonna be a lot of multiple prize Pokemon, so that's actually pretty good news for Gholdengo. And even moving forward, there are gonna be 3 prizers coming, the Mega Evolution Pokemon that give up 3 prize cards. So I think Gholdengo is also a nice deck to invest some time into it. It's already a great deck, but it will only become better with rotation. And yeah, your Gimme Goals are now the threat, because if you survive the Gimme Goal turn, you're good to go, because as soon as you have the 260 HP Gholdengo EX, you're going to be in a great position. You can also rely on TM Evo if you want to make it a little bit faster. Archelodon, another tier A deck. I think Archelodon is great. Not only can you get new cards into the list, like the Hobbs Zacian EX, for example, if you want to be combining the 2 of them, so you have Archelodon to power up and Zacian EX, I think you're gonna have a great thing going for you, because you just power yourself up with the Assemble Alloy ability. We have seen in Japan that you don't need Dialga to win games. It has already proven itself worthy in Japan. So for me, it's a solid tier A deck, the Archelodon deck. There's still the Black Belt, which you can use to your advantage to slap 260, which is great against the Gholdengo matchup. You just obliterate decks like the Terrapago's Noctowl Ogerpon box deck, so that's why it's great. 220 damage output is great. You might think Terrapago isn't one-shot, but because of Black Belt, it is. You also have the capabilities of using Relicanth and the Raging Hammer to buff up your damage output if the opponent doesn't one-shot you. So, and you're also not weak against sniping capabilities. So I think Archeladon, strong deck, great matchup against Dragapult, great matchup against the Ogerpon box deck, and that's why it's a tier A deck. Sometimes it does have its little consistency issues. You no longer have Lumineon. You're gonna have to rely on good old Pokegear and pray, find that supporter. You no longer have Radiant Greninja, so you have to get that early on Squawkabilly going. Hopefully you find your Scoop Up Cyclone in time to get rid of it from the board, otherwise it's a 2-prize liability, but it's a strong deck. I'm still a big fan of Archeladon post rotation. Let's talk about Miraidon. I'll put that in, I don't know. I'll be putting it in tier C for now. I could be getting higher the more placements it gets, but for now, tier C is where it stands. We still have Electric Generator. We are going to be in a situation where the Ogerpon box deck can actually become very, very fast. That means if they go first, and if you don't get like an attack going, Zapdos from Pokemon Go also rotates. That means your damage output is a little bit low, your Raikou V is gone, your Forest Seal Stone is gone, so you lose a lot of your inherent strength. There is still the Joltik that people play to just power your Pokemon up, and then they're also playing Sparkling Crystal, so you can actually start swinging with Pikachu EX as well. There's still Magneton, there's still Electric Generator, so the deck is still there, but it loses to Archeladon, it loses to Goldengo, and has some issues with Dragapult. It's not as strong as it used to be because of the Forest Seal Stone rotating, because of the Raikou being gone, so that's why it's tier C. So like Gardevoir and Miraidon most likely will still adapt, will be fine, but for now they're in tier C. Raging Bolt is going to be going in tier A. Raging Bolt doesn't lose all too much. It loves to see 2-prize Pokemon that you can instantly prey upon. You just use your Squawkabilly, you can still have your Teal Dances, and then use your Sawdust. You play 4 copies of Earthen Vessel. You probably will need to play more Ultra Balls, so you have the discard synergy, so you can activate Professor Sada. Lumineon is gone, so you're probably going to be relying on Pokegear, but the deck is still strong. You just one-shot anything in the game, whether it's a Goldengo, or an Archeladon, a Dragapult, or an Ogerpon. If you can get that turn 1 attack off with the Raging, with the Bellowing Thunder, you're going to be in a great position. So for me, Raging Bolt belongs in tier A, doesn't lose all too much. You might miss your Pokestops, but let's be honest, Pokestop always discarded your Sawdust anyway, so you no longer have that issue. There's still the Cycling Road, which you can also rely upon, but for me personally, I think Raging Bolt is one of the decks you should actually start playtesting with, because it actually is in a great spot. Okay, moving forward is wall decks. I don't know where to put wall decks. They performed incredibly well over at the Fukuoka Champions League, so for now in the low end of tier A, I suppose. Fairy Giraffe is a card you should definitely get because it blocks off basic EXs, which is great against the Ogerpon box deck, as well as Raging Bolt. If those decks are not actually playing Cornerstone, you auto-win them by just getting out your Fairy Giraffe, which is great. You have Milotic, you have Mimikyu, you have your Cornerstone. So you use Cornerstone against Goldengo, you use Milotic against stuff like Charizard and Dragapult, you use Fairy Giraffe against Raging Bolt. So you have all the answers of all the walls, and canceling Cologne is no longer in the format, meaning nothing can actually stop these abilities. If you're not having an answer for it, you're gonna lose, and it shows. In the Fukuoka Champions League, there has been so much wall decks around that people didn't see it coming. So we're definitely gonna be needing a card that can shut down abilities, because these wall decks will be everywhere. So tier A for me. Moving forward, let's talk about Hops Zacian. Hops Zacian EX. I'll put that in the high end of tier B. These new decks are still in development. I think Archeladon is great if you're playing a low amount of like Hops Zacian into the list, because Hops Zacian actually can slap more damage depending on if you're playing Hops Choice Ballad, if you're playing Hops Snorlax, if you're playing for example, what other cards are there that can help, like the Stadium card that can help out for damage output. That means that the Hops Zacian can slap easily 120 for 1 energy, or actually 0 energies because of the Hops Choice Belt, and then sniping some damage on the bench. You can buff up your second attack as well, base damage 240, but with that damage output it gets further, and you can power it up through the means of Archeladon. Talking about the Archeladon, there's also the Hops Dubwool, by the way, which goes in synergy perfectly with Archeladon. Now you can be playing Turo and Boss at the same time, or an Iono and Boss at the same time, because Hops Dubwool has gusting capabilities, and that's why if you're playing anything with Archeladon, you're probably going to be better off than playing it with playing a pure Hops Zacian EX deck. But it's still cool. It's probably going to be seeing play, but it's not the highest tier deck out there for now. Okay, let's talk about some Hopium decks out there. Slowking, in theory, is great, but I have not seen that much results from it. People saying, oh, Manaphy rotated, that means you can snipe the entire bench and win the game. Slowking does require 2 energies. You probably will need to power it up manually, or you can rely upon a rare candy Guardy build and have to play like the Knight Academy to put on your Kyurem on top of the deck and spread. But let's be honest, all the Pokemon that are Terra Pokemon can be damaged on the bench, meaning that your Kyurem strategies are not going to be that successful, and that's why I still think Slowking is a tier D deck, could become tier C at most, but I have not seen that much success from it. So if there are some Slowking believers out there, it is time for you to rise and test out Slowking, but for now, put it in tier D. Okay, Iono's Belly Bolt, I'll put that in tier C. Unfortunately, I don't believe that the Iono's Belly Bolt is a very strong archetype. You're playing on low HP Voltorbs as your main attackers. The ability is strong, infinite energy acceleration for lightning Pokemon on Iono's Pokemon. You also have the Iono's Voltorb and the Kilowattrel, which can draw cards. I know they want to push that archetype, but it's still not the greatest out there. It is falling a little bit short, and that's why I'm putting it in tier C. Also, note to self is that Voltorb needs a ton of energies, and it gets like sniped away by like Darmanitan, by stuff like the Wellspring and all that. So not too big of a fan of it. Okay, moving forward, let's talk about Frozlass. I also put it in tier D. I've seen some Frozlass decks around, but all the known players that actually played against Frozlass already or know what it does can just play less abilities, right? You don't need to get all your Dracloaks out, or maybe you evolve all your Dracloaks. You don't need to get all your Teal Mask Ogerpons out. You just have full control, right? And because there's sniping capabilities and you don't have Manaphy and the Frozlass only has 90 HP, I'll have to put it in tier D, despite the fact that people are actually playing this over in Japan from time to time. Continuing on, we're going to be talking about Flareon EX, the EV box. I'll put that in tier B. I think it is not too bad of a deck. It actually gets off quite nicely. You have the EVs, which can instantly evolve into the Pokemon you want. You have the Noctowl engine. Talking about the Noctowl engine, you're going to be seeing a whole lot of Noctowl-based decks out there, because it actually is one of the most consistent ways to play decks. You're seeing it already in the tier S deck of the Ogerpon Terrapagus, but in this EV box, you're also going to be seeing quite a bit of it, and I think it's not bad, because Zoroark has 280 HP, Flareon one-shots that. Sometimes you can use Prime Catch Boss combos to just deal with Archelodon. You also hit weakness against Goldango, so there's a little bit about Flareon to be hyped about, let's be honest. Talk about Cerulege now. I'll put that in... Should I put it higher? Nah, I'll put it in tier B. I am missing in this deck stuff like Pokestop a lot. That's actually Radiant Greninja also. Without these cards, the deck slowed down a little bit, so I have to put it in tier B. We still have Squawkabilly, you still have 4 Earthen Vessel, you still have Brilliant Blender, you still have Budu to slow the opponent down. There's still a lot of main things that are in the deck, but I miss Palkia a lot in this archetype, and if you have to rely on Cerulege and the opponent throws a Milotic at you, it becomes very difficult to deal with. So for me, tier B for the Cerulege. Okay, talking about Feraligatr. This deck actually won the Fukuoka Champions League, but I still have to put it in tier B. I have tested a little bit of the Feraligatr deck, but it's just a lucky one-trick pony. I don't know. I know you can hide behind Mimikyus and all that, but people will definitely attack against Mimikyus, as of course Milotic, the wall deck, was doing really well over in Japan. People will be coming prepared with one-price Pokemon or things to deal with those. So I expect like stuff like Sandy Shocks or... there's definitely going to be one-prizers coming into all of these decks to deal with the wall decks, and that's why Mimikyu is less good. As mentioned, the Feraligatr deck does require 2 water-type energies, which can sometimes be difficult. On the other hand, because Canceling Cologne is gone, the effect of using the attack of Crocodile and hitting to the bench on a Mimikyu is pretty good. You also should know is that if you trap something with the attack of Totodile, less decks will be actually playing stuff like switch cards. As mentioned in the Raging Bolt deck, they're probably going to be playing Latias EX. Snorlax block has rotated, so you don't have to be afraid of getting trapped, and that's where things go wrong, because you can still get trapped through the means of a Totodile. You can still get trapped through the means of a Wellspring Ogerpon, so there are still definitely some panic situations that can happen where you can trap opponents. I'm not a big believer in the Feraligatr deck. They did win, but I'm still not convinced quite yet. I'm putting it in tier B. Let me know in the comment section how you feel about the Feraligatr deck. Okay, there are still some roguish decks out there that I want to be talking about. Blizzy EX, I'll put that in tier C. The reason why I'm putting it in tier C is that I know it can deal with the Ogerpon deck. I know it can deal with Dragapult quite easily, I might add. But it has some problems with the one-shot decks. Raging Bull and Goldango are still one-shot decks that are in tier A, and they deal with Blizzy quite convincingly. Also, the wall decks sometimes can wall you out, even though you have Munkidori, which you can attack with. It's not always enough, and I don't know. I'll just put it in tier C. Even though you have a great matchup against Dragapult, sometimes they do have Dusknoir and just run you over. It happens. Okay, moving forward, Mamoswine. Putting it in the low end of tier C. In theory, it has great stats. 340 HP, getting the Pokemon out the deck every single turn, slapping more damage depending on how many stage 2 Pokemon you have in play. With the ability, it synergizes quite well. I don't know. You do have a fighting type at your side. That means you can hit weakness against Terapagos, I suppose, but no, not too convinced quite yet. I also didn't see that much results, and it also requires 2 energies, which can sometimes be hard to chain. If you get one-shot by a Raging Bull or something, or a Goldango, it's going to be hard to power up that second Mamoswine, so that's why it belongs in tier C. Charizard. Charizard is still a fine deck, because it is one of those decks that if you survive the Wellspring Ogerpon turn, you're good, I suppose. Maybe you get out 3 Charmanders. Maybe that's all you need to do. Get out 3 Charmander, and then even if they Wellspring, you just evolve into a Charizard and they can no longer deal with that, which is awesome. So yeah, Charizard's still good. Put that in tier A. Budew is still around, don't forget that, but it's played in less amount. Less and less people are actually playing the Budews out there in post rotation, but Charizard's still a deck. You can have all the answers in the world. You can play even the Noctowl build of Charizard seems pretty strong in my opinion. Getting any 2 trainers from the deck. Maybe you can then instantly set up a Pidgeot EX. Maybe you're playing Dusknoir. Maybe you're playing it without Dusknoir. I think Charizard is still a strong deck post-rotation. Ancient Box. Ancient Box has a good time against the Ogerpon deck. Less great time against Dragapult if they're playing like a Turo. That could be really bad. You have a great time against Raging Bulls. You have to put it in the high end of tier B, I guess. I guess that makes sense. Maybe the end Zoroark also becomes a little bit higher, maybe like this, right? Okay, so what we're saying here is the Roaring Moon here actually is a great Pokemon, slapping more damage depending on how many ancient cards there are in the discard pile. You do lose Radiant Greninja, which does slow down the process. You will probably need to have another draw engine. Maybe you're thinking about playing the Rever Room as a draw engine, which is a stage 1, which is kind of annoying. You no longer have Pokestop, you're slowed down a little bit, but you still have Brilliant Blender. You deal with the 2 prizers at one point quite easily. Yeah, I'll have to be putting it in tier B for me. There's also the Lillie's Clefairy EX. There has been some decks revolved around this. People are actually hyped for Lillie's Clefairy because he can turn Raging Bull's weakness into Psychic weakness. You can turn Dragapult's weakness into Psychic weakness. You can deal with the 2 prizers if your bench is completely filled up. So there are definitely some hype to be playing Lillie's Clefairy EX in its own version of a build. So I'll have to put it in tier A, looking at the results from Japan. But for me, it feels more like a tech card in decks out there, but it's just that strong because there's a lot of Dragon-type Pokemon are out there that were unchecked previously that can now get slapped by a Lillie's Clefairy EX. We have a Chimpao. There's still Budew in the format. If you want to be playing a deck that one-shots, you're probably better off playing Goldango. But yeah, you can still play Iron Hands, amp some Pokemon, one-shot Dragapult, but Dragapult plays Budew, which is very, very annoying. But not a lot of decks are playing Budew. I think I'll have to give Chimpao the benefit of the doubt. You can be playing the Rever Room build because you're always going to have access to energies through the means of Shivery Chill. I'll put it in tier B because I am a Chimpao. Yeah, I have a soft spot in my heart for Chimpao. I don't know if it's going to actually see some results, but for me, people will need to test it out because it still is a deck that is, if it sets up, it's very strong. Baxcalibur, Chimpao, Hillblade, one-shot on all of these Pokemon. Could be fun, right? And then Future Box. Sometimes Future Box sees some results, but for now, I'll put it in tier C. It is a deck that sometimes can get the Iron Hands set up and then deal with a lot of stuff, but has a tough time against Dragapult EX. When Dragapult EX sets up, it can just spread. If it attacks a couple of times, it can actually get a 6 prize turn. There's also Raging Ball, which can one-shot you way quicker. There's Goldango out there. Even if you amp, you're gonna have troubles with a Goldango EX. You have to get out of all the Iron Crowns. Yeah, I have to put it in tier C for now. So these are like the decks that are currently being played in Japan. Hopefully you guys enjoyed a video like this. If you did, let me know by rocking the hell out of the like button. Helps out in ridiculous ways to support the channel. Only takes one tiny second every time, and I always appreciate it. As mentioned, the decks you should take a look at are like Wellspring, Ogerpon, Teal Mask, Ogerpon, Terapagos, Noctowl Box, that's tier S. Dragapult EX, still tier S, doesn't lose too much. Raging Bolt, same story, doesn't lose too much. Goldango gets actually pretty good in the post rotation. It's already good right now, but it is going to be way better after rotation because it's one of the decks that has the best consistency now with coin bonus and nobody playing Radiant Greninja, which is awesome. You have also Radiant Charizard being rotated, which also was actually quite of a pain to deal with because you're weak to fire. And yeah, I think it's nice. You have to be careful of these wall decks, by the way. These wall decks will be very annoying in the format. We no longer have canceling Cologne, so prepare for that. Archetypes now can actually have some very funky combos if you're playing the Hops Dubwool, which is awesome. And Zoroark is a new archetype gaining in a lot of popularity lately. You can have trade. It's a strong archetype, and if people are actually mastering the exact 60, there's a lot you can do when you draw a lot of cards every single turn, as we saw with Gardevoir. Talking about Gardevoir, it actually fell down to the wayside quite a bit, same like as Miraidon. But these can actually bounce back. If people find the exact 60s, they might bounce back because they have strong abilities. Miraidon sets your field up. Gardevoir just sets up Pokemon. You still have Drifloon, you still have Screamtail. Feraligatr is the surprise of this format. It seemingly works and people are hyped for it. I don't know, and I'm personally not too big of a believer, but it's here. Hops Zacian, huge damage for just 0 energies or 1 energy, which is awesome. And you also have the Cramorant, which can deal quite a bit of damage if the opponent has that exactly specific amount of prize cards. Chimpow's question mark, I'll put it in the half of like the late end of B, but I don't even know. People could just buddy you out of existence, but that's the same thing for Goldango, right? Sometimes people are playing Dragapult with Goldango. Lots of things possible. This is how the post-rotation format will be looking like with the Journey Together set. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. As always, there's going to be more content coming. So I'll be seeing you guys tomorrow for more Pokemon TCG content. I wish you all a very fantastic rest of your day. And yeah, rotation is coming in about a month's time. Let me know in the comment section which deck you will be mastering after rotation. I want to hear your opinion down below. Did I forget a couple of decks? A couple of rogue decks? Maybe you're a Toadscruel EX fan and it's not on the list. Let me know if there are decks out there that you personally would be putting into this tier list post rotation. Have yourself a fantastic rest of the day, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.